OK, let's get more reaction to the death of former Brazil captain Socrates. South America football expert Tim Vickery joins us now. Very good morning to you, Tim. Very early morning where you are at the moment. Just give us your thoughts and memories of Socrates.
Well, it's an extremely sad day because Brazilian football and Brazilian society have lost someone today who still has a great deal to give. Socrates was an exceptionally intelligent man. We saw that on the football field. And Socrates didn't turn professional until he was 24, until he'd finished his medical studies. And he was never, either, I think, by biology or by lifestyle, he was never an athlete in the plenitude of the word. And Socrates, the player, got around that by applying his intelligence to the game of football. He was perhaps, in the history of the game, the best player with the back heel there's ever been. And he almost had eyes in the back of his head, and the back heel was his intentional way of levelling the playing field against people who were so much more athletic than he was. And he played his football always with a style and with a swagger, and with huge political importance. In the early 80s, when he really made his name with the Corinthians club, Brazil was still ruled at that time by a military dictatorship. And Socrates was the leader of a movement inside the club called Corinthians Democracy, where the players, the coaching staff, the club employees would sit down and they would vote about almost everything that affected their day-to-day lives, whether they'd stay in a hotel before the game, who they would sign, things like this. And this was a very, very important movement, which helped, I think, prepare Brazil for the return of democracy. So Socrates, the player, and Socrates, the man, in both you see huge intelligence, you see great values, and it's a tragedy that he's been taken so early when he still has such a role to play in the development of this country, which is going through something of a boom at the moment. Just
want to read you a quote of his, talking about his time in Florence with Fiorentina. He says, I was in Florence for a year with Fiorentina. Sometimes I didn't want to train, but to hang out with friends, party or have a smoke. There's more to life than football. Does that sum him up?
I think it does. He was never really made for the almost military discipline of Italian football at that time. In fact, he decided to leave Brazil in protest. That there was an amendment to put in direct elections for Brazil's president, which was not passed through Brazil's Congress. In protest, he left Brazil and went to Fiorentina, where he had something of an unhappy time. Now, with hindsight, he would clearly say that he exaggerated in his dealings with alcohol. He was in hospital 8 days in August, 16 days in September, both times for liver-related problems which have been brought on by excessive alcohol consumption. He came out of that saying that he and alcohol were no longer going to be strict partners, and he was going to clean his act up. Unfortunately, he hasn't had time to do that. And I say unfortunately because I still think he could have been such an important voice. Just over a month ago, he criticised the 2014 World Cup, which Brazil is staging. He said that there's too much public money being spent on a private event. It's an inversion of values, and if it's going to be like this, I would rather that Brazil didn't have it. Now, one can agree or disagree, but I think that was an important voice in the debate, and it's that Brazil has lost today, such an important voice in the debate. It's an emotional day to lose him, because this is the final day of the Brazilian Championship in 2011. And Corinthians, the club with whom Socrates was so identified, only need a draw against their deadly rivals Palmeiras in order to clinch the title. So I'm sure that the players of Corinthians will feel an extra obligation to get that point or to get the 3 points, win the title in tribute to Socrates, who's been taken from us at such an early age.
That 82 World Cup team, Tim, quoted as being the team widely regarded as one of the finest never to have won the World Cup. Is that a fair comment? He was the captain of that.
There's no doubt it's a fair comment. And that team proves the lie of the phrase that no one ever remembers who comes second. Because that team didn't even come second, didn't even reach the last four. But they're still remembered all over the world, and remembered with such affection. They're remembered, I think, with much more affection than the Brazil sides of, say, 94 or 2002, who won the World Cup. And so the lesson really is football is not just about what you do, it's about how you do it. And that's the lesson that Socrates tried to teach people. That the game is not just about results, it's also about glory. And if Brazil didn't win that World Cup, then they covered themselves with glory, and that team is still remembered with huge affection all over the world.
Just happened to come up against Paolo Rossi, who was just waking up in the tournament, wasn't he, at that stage? What about that spell with Garforth Town? What was that all about?
Well, that was it wasn't a spell, really. It was 10 minutes. His nickname of Socrates in his pomp was Magrão. Now, Magrão in Portuguese, that translates as long, thin one. And I think when he waddled around the pitch for a few minutes there with Garforth Town, you'd see that nickname didn't really apply anymore. He was still very long, but he wasn't very thin anymore. So I think you could see there that his lifestyle was really not conducive. And it's so ironic that we are talking about a medical man, a man who trained and worked as a doctor, but didn't take enough care with his own health, with his smoking and his drinking.
Such an eclectic mix of what he could be remembered for. A fan of Fidel Castro, Che Guevara and John Lennon, he listed. The exponent of the back heel, a captain of Brazil, a doctor or a heavy smoker and drinker. What would he like to be remembered as?
Well, you know, I remember him writing about Tele Santana. When Tele Santana died, Tele Santana was the coach of that 82 side and also the 86 side. And he wrote about the scenes in the dressing room after Brazil had been eliminated by Italy, after Paolo Rossi had fired them out of that World Cup. And he said there were people crying and there was chaos, and Tele Santana, the coach, in the middle of this, totally serene, just saying, we gave it our best shot. We couldn't have done more. I'm proud of what our team has provided, the spectacle that we've provided for the world. It may have ended too soon, but I'm proud of what we've done. And maybe that ties in also with Socrates' life, that he's been taken from us too soon, but he leaves us a plethora of memories. He's such an important figure, as I say, for Brazilian society, remembered with affection all over the world. So perhaps just like that 82 side, he's been taken from us too early, but we'll remember him for how he went about his business.
Tim Vickery, thank you very much.
Thank you.